Hey YouTube, so today I'm going to go over what I do for my acrylic enclosures because I've had people ask me like, oh, what are the acrylic enclosures you use? So I figured I would share what I do to them because I do have to, adapt them for isopods. And then I figured I would compare it to like the typical bin. So this is your typical bin. This bin costs less money than this. This is like $6. This is 20 something. And then this is 30 something. So, these are a lot more, especially as you add more and more of them. And then these are quote unquote more compact because they're not as tall, so these stack easier. And then these take a lot less time to adapt for pods. You drill a hole, drill, 3 holes, that takes like no time. And then if you buy vents, you just screw the vents in and you're done. If you want to be cheaper, I highly recommend, no matter what, you use steel mesh because if you have gaps in there, like once again, you will have gnats go in and out. You can have pods go in and out. If you don't use steel mesh, your pods can eat away at it. Whatever you do, you should use steel mesh. So if you just cut out a steel mesh circle and then hot glue it, kind of like what we're gonna do over here, do that. But if you're interested in vents, we sell them on our website, becomushi.com. Shameless plug. So you can see the cool design pattern there, right? And we can do whatever color you want. All right, so that's my plug. So that is, a pro of this, or pros. And then pros of this though, obviously it looks a lot nicer, so you can see your pods a lot better. So if you have more showy pods, this is probably the preferred method over this. And then other pro is that this is quick access. So, you have your mossy side here, and then you can quickly spray your mossy side for the day or whatever, and then close it up. Good to go. And then, if you want to access the entire thing, you can just take it off and access it instead of like clippy clip or whatever. I've never had pods escape from here, even before I closed off the side vents, like I'm going to show you. Here I've had pods escape. So this is not gasketed, and pods, even though you think it's closed, pods can still, babies will still crawl up this and escape out. So I actually had a bunch of gills, very, very sad gill babies, like 8 of them, over time escape and die. So I moved my gills out of this and into one of these actually, mainly because of that reason. And also I want to give them more room because if you compare this to this is bigger than this. This large is bigger than this. So I want to give them more space, and then I wanted to see them better, which I've been seeing them a lot better, I feel, since moving them to this acrylic enclosure. And then, yeah, babies won't escape from here. So that's kind of the pros of this versus the pros of this. And then, so what do you do for these? I guess also a con of this is this takes a lot more time and energy to adapt for isopods than this does. So what I've done for these is, you can see this is like a stock top that hasn't been altered yet. And you can see all those holes. That's bad for 2 reasons. Your humidity levels will dry up your pods really fast because all that humidity is escaping. You don't need this much airflow by any means. And then the other con of these holes is gnats can go in and out. So this is what I've done since the dawn of time with these enclosures. I actually kind of started out with these enclosures and not bins. These enclosures, I would, did this acrylic top, would cut some holes and call it good. Nowadays, because of gnats, I put steel mesh circles between the layer of this acrylic and the, acrylic top. I will put a layer of mesh, which prevents the gnats from going in and out. So you can, if you have an acrylic place near you, like Taps Plastic or something like that, not Home Depot, not a store like that, but an actual acrylic store, they will cut to size for you. So you can get this cut to size, and then you can just take the hole saw that you would use over here for cutting these holes, and then you can hole saw this yourself. Obviously, you know, without it attached, right? So you just hole saw the piece of acrylic, this thin piece of acrylic. Thin acrylic is cheap, so that's good. And then, and also there's acrylic places that will have, you know, could have scraps that are cheap. So I know the place near me has scraps where it's less than a foot by a foot, so it's $1. So this top, in essence, I could create 2 of these actually for $1. So, you know, that at least is inexpensive. And then you would cut the holes yourself, and then, you know, cut the mesh and then put the mesh in between, and then use acrylic glue. It's very liquidy. I use a syringe and I just kind of like squirt it in between the gaps, and then it fills in the gaps. Which you can't really see it in the, oh yeah, you can see kind of like this line, right? So the acrylic glue creates a chemical fusion between the 2 sheets of acrylic. That's what it's doing. So you can see where the glue kind of like went between the 2 layers and kind of melted it. In essence, it melts it. It does a physical compound adhering something, blah blah blah. But anyway, that's the top. So that's what I do for the tops. And then the sides, what I do now, before I would just like let them be, but once again, gnats. So, and then also you don't need all these holes for the airflow. So nowadays what I do is I will do, you know, a few things of hot glue. I cut the strip out first of all. So I buy sheets. I found that sheets are better because this isn't all curled up, so it's easier to work with. So I buy it's like a 4-pack, I believe, a 4-pack sheet of this stuff. It's like $10. Each sheet is like plenty big. Don't remember the dimensions, but plenty big. And then, yeah, I just like, you know, do some hot glue, push it down, not with my finger, using generally like a scrap piece of this. I'll push it down so that it adheres, and then, you know, I'll do another dot or 2 dots or several dots, whatever. Push it down so it dries, and then do another few, blah blah blah, etc., until the end. And then what I didn't really do on this, which I'll show you, I did on one of the other ones that I recommend doing. You can see it here, is I go back and I seam it. So steel mesh can cut you. It's not pleasant to work with by any means. You can use regular scissors to cut it, so that's good. You don't need anything fancy. But you can see that there's like, right, that like little burr. So what I've done now, not for this one, is I'll go back and I'll close the seam up, quote unquote, or I'll seal the seam with hot glue, and that's mainly for protection, not so much for you know, making this stick because it's already stuck along the way, but mainly just so you don't accidentally cut yourself. And then, yeah, I just do that to all 4 sides. So you can see that I was better at this one, doing that, sealing the sides up. And then, yeah, this one. And then this side, I actually cut an acrylic piece and then, you know, just close this entire thing off. The thin acrylic you can cut with a blade. It's just not, you know, it takes several passes and it's not the easiest thing to do. So once again, having a laser cutter, it was easy for me to cut the strip. But you can just go hole by hole, plugging it up with hot glue. You know, hot glue works wonders. But yeah, that's pretty much what I do to adapt my acrylic enclosure. So this would, you know, be my mossy side since I closed all this off. More humid, right? Your mossy side, you want to be more humid. So there's more of these holes that are closed off on both sides. This has the smaller hole, right? This is the bigger hole, a lot more ventilation. So you also want to plan your enclosure around. So, you know, the pro of having the mossy side in the front is that it's more visually appeasing, because I use like green nice moss, not sphagnum moss. And then, but the con is that, you know, if I access it, I have to take the entire top off and then spray instead of just like a quick access thing and spray, right? So pro con. Yeah, that's the enclosure. This is 6" by 6" by 10". And then the bigger one is 6-inch, once again high, tall, by 8-inch by 12-inch. And then, yeah, this is just some sort of method I tried out using 3D print. I've 3D printed these windows, so it does look quote unquote cleaner than this, but I think because of this black bar, like, it just stands out more. I feel like this blends and meshes in more, so it's kind of a little bit more invisible than like having this black thing. Also, this was a pain in the butt to do, so I don't recommend this. Like, yeah, maybe it looks cleaner, but this was a lot more of a pain in the butt to do than this was. So yeah, that's what I do with my acrylic enclosures. That's kind of like a comparison, pros, cons of acrylic. These acrylic enclosures versus these bins. If you do get bins, I think it is kind of harder to find the smaller bins gasketed, but if you can, I recommend it because you will have pods escape from these. Maybe not a ton, but they are, especially if they're higher up. I guess that was a part of the problem, is that the moss for this like literally went to here, so there wasn't that much space for them. So if you have a smaller substrate and they have more room to have to climb to escape, you're less likely to have pods escape. But I think because the moss was so high of how this enclosure was built up that there wasn't much room for them, so it was easy for them to escape. So just something to note, for the bin setup. But these, once again, I never have had anything escape because they don't really climb the acrylic. They can't, like, they fall climbing the acrylic. And I've never really seen any try. Yeah, I've just had one pod that would climb the acrylic. And yeah, these are in boot and springtails that were in here. This was failed. Ow! See, I just poked myself. So you got to be careful with this steel mesh. So I have to clip that. Yep, that wasn't it. It's probably on the side somewhere because I didn't seal the side. See, that's why you should seal the side, because you can prick yourself. Yeah, current boot and springtails, not a good enclosure for them. Just side note. So let me know if you have any questions, or if you do anything different. But once again, figured I would go over how I adapt these acrylic enclosures for my isopods and then compare them to the bin. So you decide what works best for you, and also budget, right? It's a budget thing too. So maybe if you have some nicer pods, you might get like 1 or 2 of these, and then your other pods can be in this kind of thing. Or you just move all to these. I don't know. There's a lot of different options for people out there. This is just what I've, picked up on and done because I wanted the quick access, and it's secure. Like, this thing is pretty secure, and also I wanted to be able to see my isopods a lot better than like the bins. So if you found this helpful, once again, I'd appreciate you hitting that thumbs up button, and for more of these videos, if you want to be notified when I create them, subscribe to the channel. I appreciate it very much. Help us grow, reach more people by having a larger channel. Thanks for watching. Bye.